Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria. I'm the host of the Sanity Project podcast, and I partner with IT pros in telecommunications, technology, entertainment, and mass media industries whose work-life integration plan has imploded and who want more success, more confidence, more fun, and more inner peace. The Sanity Project podcast is a platform for experts in the personal and business development communities to share their wisdom, expertise, and solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Our guest today is Jordan Gross. Jordan Gross is a 23-year-old entrepreneur and writer. He graduated from Northwestern University with a degree in economics and received a master's in management from the Kellogg School of Management and went directly into a corporate job. He recently left that role to pursue what truly lights him up every day, which is adding value to others without expecting anything in return. Jordan founded and worked with multiple startups in the food space. He created an Alzheimer's awareness mission. He is a personal trainer. And last but not least, he is the author of Getting Comfy, Your Morning Guide to Daily Happiness. Welcome to the show, Jordan Gross.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad that you're here because I've been wanting millennials to show up, and unfortunately, that's the label that applies to you.
Yes.
And I understand you're going to be teaching listeners how to better utilize their mornings to begin every single day with purpose and passion. Could you explain a little more about that?
Yeah, 100%. So my area of expertise is waking up to your highest potential, or becoming your best self every day you wake up in the morning. So I started way back when I was a younger kid, and I had some weight issues growing up. I was a little bit chubby, and instead of cooping myself up and hiding my fears, I just decided to wake up a little bit earlier every single morning, and I'd run around my room, I'd run around my stairs and in the house, and I'd even jog in the shower. And little by little, I started to see some improvements in my body, and then ever since then, I've really cherished my mornings throughout my entire life. So I started writing about that in a Word document, and I called it Getting Comfy. And I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but I knew that when I was going through this routine, I was getting comfy in my own skin and really getting comfy in my life. So I decided to create a little acronym, and that's how the Getting Comfy movement and community in this book began. So for all of you out there, I'll give you a little sneak peek. I won't dive too deep into it, but the acronym is COMFY, C-O-M-F-Y, and C stands for calm. So this is when you wake up, and we all wake up startled by our alarm clocks, a little bit anxious going into, I guess, the mundane realities of our everyday work life. And calm is just something like focusing on deep breathing or meditation right when you wake up in the morning. The next one is openness. And openness is all about, it's a two-factor approach. So one, you can either become open with yourself, and that's through a process like journaling. Or two, it's becoming open with other people. And that's so important, especially in this day and age with so much stress out there. As a millennial, we're in a transitional period, either going into college, from college to new jobs, switching jobs. It really is so beneficial to have conversations with people, talk about your fears, rather than keep them cooped up inside. M is movement. I think from before you can tell that it's a very, very important part to me. I've fortunately gotten to a point where, like Joanne mentioned, I am a personal trainer now and feel pretty good about my body. But now I think it's so important to use movement as a means to open up my mind. It's not just for physicality anymore. So I try to run or go to the gym for just a little bit every single morning. The F is funny. So this is where we really lighten up our day, lighten up our routine. And I truly think that you have to laugh every single day in order to be successful. It gives you this grand sense of perspective that no matter what happens throughout the rest of the day, no matter what you think is going on in your own life, just try to smile at it and keep on moving on to the next thing. Finally is why, and why stands for you or your passion. And this part is the main goal of personal development. I don't care if you are the most selfless person in the entire world. I really like to think that that's a goal of mine, is to really add value to others without expecting anything in return. But I know that in order for me to be my best self and help others in the best way, I need to focus on something that I love every single morning and spend some time on it every single day, so that I could be the best Jordan for other people. So whether it's learning a new language, learning a new dance move, mine was writing for a while, mine's been cooking in the morning. My why is just a passion that I try to work on for as many days in a row as possible, really develop a habit out of it. And that's the last thing I do before I approach the rest of my day.
So do you get up real early, or do you just get up? I don't know. What time do you get up in the morning to get these things done? Because I know that some of it can be done in a short period of time. You know, your breathing, your journaling. I've got about half hour there. Your personal training might be an hour. The funny part, of course, takes no time at all because you've got that kind of energy. Mm-hmm. And then your passion, your personal passion for that particular whatever particular time in your life. So is it about an hour or an hour and a half that you devote? And
absolutely. Yeah. So that's a phenomenal question. And something that's very important about the Getting Comfy routine is that, unlike a lot of other self-help books that give you a definitive, you have to do this, you have to do that, Getting Comfy is really a collection of morning recommendations rather than an absolute process. So if you try some things out and you realize that 5 minutes of meditation is your sweet spot, then that's what you should do. If you realize that 20 minutes on the elliptical is your sweet spot, then that's what you should do. For me in particular, I do wake up kind of early so that I can get to, I start personal training at 6 a.m. So I wake up around 5:15 so that I have a good 45 minutes to myself. I'll usually do about 10 minutes meditation, maybe like 5 minutes of openness, whether that's reaching out to a friend or journaling. I like to do a quick little workout in my own bedroom right before I go to the gym. And that takes maybe 5-10 minutes. I'll just do a couple jumping jacks, maybe some push-ups, a funny video. I usually take, like you said, it's 2 to 3 minutes tops. And then right now my choice has been reading, actually. So I'll read for the remainder of the time until I have to head out to the next thing.
Well, I want to remind people before we go further along in our conversation is that people can go to your website at getting-comfy.com. That's getting, getting-comfy.com, and receive a free 5-day Getting Comfy morning routine. This way you can listen to it read about it, and then re-listen to this podcast when you have time, because you can make this podcast part of your morning routine, people.
Absolutely.
So how will you bring a millennial approach to this conversation? Because you talk about discussing the importance of vulnerability and stepping outside the comfy zone. Is that something that millennials need to do, should do?
Yes.
How? Okay.
Yes, 100%. So I would say the millennial focus here comes in the fact that I went to a very good academic school. I went to Northwestern, and then I got my master's in management from their business school there. And I think as millennials, a lot of the time we are supposed to follow a certain path. And that path for myself and my peers was either go into finance or go into consulting or go into marketing. And it was to use this fancy degree in order to make some money and become financially stable. I've always looked at life in the way that I like to think about my decision-making process in a way where I can look at it from like 50-year-old Jordan and say, wow, is that decision going to make my story more unique for somebody that I'm telling it to? Or is it just kind of going to be another part of the process, something that I don't even have to mention? So I always wanted to deviate from the path a little bit. I didn't necessarily want to go and do the same thing that my peers were doing. And that honestly took a lot of guts, because whereas I know that this is the right decision for me, helping others, maybe not focusing on my finances too much at this particular moment, is what I want to do right now. I need to embrace other people's skepticism, because that does happen quite often. And I think as millennials, we are scared to, I guess, face skepticism. So what I'm here to say is go ahead and practice something that you really love, and don't be afraid to be a little weird about it, because the earlier on that you start to do it, the more time you'll have to enjoy it.
And the less you'll have attached to it, thinking that you should be doing something else. The sooner you start it, the less judgment you'll have on it.
Absolutely. And this is the time to experiment. We're fortunate enough to be in a place where we may not have, financial responsibilities. We don't have families right now. We don't have mortgages right now. So now seems like the best time to explore entrepreneurship and deviating from the norm a little bit, rather than sticking on that route of banality.
Well, I'm just going to say, to have a family and have a mortgage, wouldn't that doesn't sound like it would be any different than anybody else might be going at it. I would think that, and I must say I'm not all that experienced with the millennial perspective. I don't like labels, so I sort of have an issue with that, but it exists in our society, and people label, such as yourself, a millennial, quote unquote. But I would think that you would want something different than just not minimizing, but certainly not expanding on a family and a mortgage. Wouldn't you live your life differently?
If I had a family and a mortgage, then yes, I think the conversation would be a little bit different. And I would say that, look, right now I'm fully aware of the fact that, maybe if this doesn't take off and I'm not able to support myself anymore from a financial perspective, then I may have to make some changes. But for now, I believe that I'm able to build capital in a way that's different from financial capital. It's human capital, it's emotional capital, it's experiential capital that is really going to build on my financial capital when I need it to be there.
Oh, I appreciate that, because I think it's all about people. Money comes second. Money comes when it comes. Obviously we don't work for free, but it's about the human being. It's about the relationship with the human being. But I guess what I'm looking at is how, what are you talking about when you say being vulnerable? How does you being vulnerable differ from me being vulnerable, or any other age group that is labeled out there?
Oh, I wouldn't say the vulnerability changes at all.
Okay.
That's another thing about Getting Comfy, is that it's geared toward millennials, because, I wrote about what I knew.
Sure.
And, some of the language is a little bit anecdotal and playful and very light. But at the same time, I would say it's for parents of millennials who are trying to think about, how to best be parents for their children right now. It brings up anecdotes about when I was a young child. So it's even for people in their 30s right now who may be able to resonate with some of the stories that I tell. I talk about my grandma a lot. So honestly, grandparents can look at this and enjoy the knowledge and the advice that I share. And especially when it comes to the vulnerability piece, that really has to do with the fact that being open and, like you said, understanding and appreciating and forming relationships with people is the number one outlet for any stress or anxiety that we may have. It's not the medicine, it's not the drugs, it's not the partying or drinking or the cooping it up inside. It's really having intimate conversations with people, expressing your problems, sharing your fears. That's what's really going to get you through adversity.
Okay. I think I have a question, and I'm trying to figure out how to ask it. What makes you a millennial? Or what makes anyone a millennial? Besides what society has decided to label you / us, whoever.
Right. So my very simple answer would just be because of the time I was born. I don't think millennial, for me, has to be a mindset. But I think that the common misconception is that millennial is a mindset. And that is one of privilege, instant gratification, and almost a bit of self-centeredness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that has to be the case. I just think that in the age, I think it's the age of social media. I equate millennials with social media. And I think that in the age of social media, people are so much more used to seeing instant gratification, privilege, because social media becomes more of a highlight reel than an actual depiction of how our lives are going. So I think the fact that millennials are the ones who are able to illustrate social media much more than any other generation, I think that's why the label gets put on us. Even though I think all the generations are the same, we're just the ones who are, I guess, expressing it the most outwardly at this age.
Well, also only because these options, including social media, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., are more accessible now. They didn't exist before.
Absolutely.
So people your age range, I'll just say the range, understand it more, can adapt to it quicker because you might have been exposed to computers at a younger age. I mean, there are people, your parents, for example, didn't. I'm guessing may not have been exposed to computers when they were 20 years old. Mm-hmm. So, they're learning in a different way with a different mindset. So you're learning these things quicker. And is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The accessibility, the constant, I guess, plugged inness, if that's a phrase I can use, that we have to our phones, our computers, our tablets. Yes, that is so much more readily available than it ever has been.
And you're in that the age group that you're in, you're more familiar with that at an earlier age.
Yes, definitely.
And so that makes your accessibility to the social media aspect of things easier. It's just not that big of a deal, whereas somebody else might have to take a little bit of time to, acclimate and have a learning curve. You don't have that learning curve in certain places. Is that correct? Okay. So I listen to Dave Ramsey when I'm driving my car. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he comes out of Nashville, Tennessee, and he's sold millions of books, and he helps people get out of debt, and he does it quite well. And he's had lots of calls about millennials, and he says, and he's quite upfront and direct, bottom line, you might want to just check out some of his daily shows are on YouTube. And it's just Dave Ramsey, Ramsey, I think. Mm-hmm. But it's the Dave Ramsey Show. That's all it is. On radio anywhere.
Right, I don't know.
But he's on YouTube. And what he says, people question him about, well, millennials have a different thing about money and they don't work that hard. And he said, stop it. He said, because he employs over 600 people in his company in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And he's a grand person. He's been doing this for 30 years. And he says the millennials that he knows, he said, 50% of them work hard and 50% want to get other jobs. Mm-hmm. And he says, but that's everybody.
Yeah.
50% of the world people, let's just say the U.S. people work hard and 50% don't want to work hard. Mm-hmm. So it's only because of that label being put out by, I don't know who created this, that your group is at a 10-year, I mean, each generation is about 15 years. So you have a 10, 12-year bandwidth there of people who you're just younger. That's all. That to me, that's all I see. And there's a lot to learn from, some of my experiences with millennials as clients or prospects are that they are less likely to put up with crap from an employer than most people who are 50.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know that there's not that time to waste.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. It really does. And I think that that has a lot to do with the fact that I think our time as millennials, we're starting to understand more and more with literature like, I don't know if you're familiar with Meg Jay's The Defining Decade, that our 20-something, she calls them, are really a time for us to build our experiences. And Gary Vee said the other day, Gary Vaynerchuk said,
right,
even more than in college, your 20s are when you should travel the world, write a book, focus on yourself and fail. And it's
totally agree.
And
totally agree.
That failure period and that experimentation that is going to allow you to build on your story and craft it the way that you want.
Totally agree with all of that. I think people, I don't know, but your parents' age and your grandparents' age were pushed by their own parents or their own culture to do other things, to get married, to get the mortgage, to have children, and to, there's a reason that there's a 50% divorce rate, because these things don't always work out because people haven't had the time to do what you are doing. And then you're teaching people how to be comfy with being who they are now, and take those chances now, experiment now.
Mm-hmm.
That's my talisman there with that.
Yeah. Just the last thing on that is, I mean, that was wonderfully said. And I think even like you said, things don't always work out. And I'll give you a little sneak preview, but comfy also stands for you can only move forward. Yes. So it's all about taking obstacles that come at you and applying this comfy mindset, getting comfy in your own skin and getting comfy in uncomfy situations sometimes, to moving forward with whatever life has to throw at you.
Oh, I totally agree. I've always espoused that, whatever happens, just get up, brush yourself up, and just say next. Do what's next. Do what's in front of you. Take a chance on anything you want to take a chance on, whatever fits into get outside of your comfort zone, actually.
It's all about getting comfy outside the comfy zone. That's it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. This is important here. So what made you write the book, Getting Comfy, Your Morning Guide to Daily Happiness?
Yeah. So the background story is that getting comfy came out of my weight journey, I would say. But then little by little, the years went on. I'd only write a little bit. And then when I was a senior in college, I started to write a little bit more, and I started to listen to podcasts, a lot of podcasts. And I would hear people say that it took X event for me to start Y, or it took this event for me to finally realize I had to write a book. And I would think about that statement, and I would think, well, why wait for the perfect alignment of the stars, or for either something tragic or, on the flip side, something amazing to happen to me in order for me to start sharing my life experience with other people and hopefully my advice that could change millions of lives. So I started writing a little bit every single day. And I actually put it away for a good 6 months while I was doing my master's. And then I graduated last June, and I had a couple weeks to just kind of do my own thing. And I decided that why at the end of my mornings was going to be to write up my morning routine, my comfy routine. So I did that more and more. And then, like I mentioned, I went into a corporate management role that went from July to November. And those hours ended up being really tough, and it was pretty taxing on my mind and body. But every time I got a breath of fresh air or a little bit of free time, I would go back to getting comfy and I would polish it and I would revise it. And then I started to propose it to different people, get editors. And after a while of this management role, I realized that that wasn't what was getting me excited to wake up in the morning. It was getting comfy. So I decided to leave that role and pursue this community and this movement and this book full time. So it's been about 2 months now, and Getting Comfy is out on Amazon. And actually today it became a bestseller on the Amazon Kindle store. So things are going really well, and just looking to use it in order to push my own brand and the Getting Comfy movement, and hopefully really just help millions and millions of people in the process.
That's wonderful about the book. Congratulations.
Thank you so
much.
much.
I think for me, it's a two-sided kind of thing. One, it takes an extreme amount of courage to do what you've done. Mm-hmm. And two, I fully believe that God has provided new children, new people, new beings with higher intelligence and higher capacity than before. And
you're just flattering me now.
Well, you're not alone in the group, though, Jordan. You're not alone. But if you know yourself when you just read something or see something and see a 12-year-old person, there are more 12-year-olds changing the world today than ever before, as there are now more 23-year-olds changing. Pardon? Okay, okay. Well, we'll just keep talking for a minute and just tell me when it goes away, and we'll take care of it.
Okay.
I have to figure out how to fix this. I just have to ask somebody again, still, whatever.
Yeah, it's still there.
I know. There for about a minute for it to just dissipate. And then once it does, let me know, and then I'll continue and complete, and then we'll be just fine. Okay. It's annoying more than anything else.
Yeah, you're in the middle of a really cool thought too. I'm excited to hear where that was going.
Well, that's fine, because I'll remember enough of it to continue the conversation. Okay. So do you live in Manhattan proper?
I do. I live in, I don't know if you're familiar, the Murray Hill area.
Yes.
38th and Lex.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I think we're good.
Are we?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying was two things. I think it takes an incredible amount of courage for you to do what you're doing. On the flip side, I think that the universe is being provided with smarter individuals now who have these innate desires to do things at a younger age without thinking much. This would never have been a thought with somebody who is currently 40, 50, 60, 70. It would never have been a thought in their mind. But now, I see young children, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 12-ish. After 12, it sort of evolves. So there's a different thing. But they come to this earth with talents and skills and brains and capacity and a mind to make decisions that didn't exist before.
Uh-huh.
And I think the young ones, they're not millennials. God knows what they're going to be called. Somebody will come up with another label.
Yeah.
But it's just, smart kids, and you're one of the smart young people. Oh, well, it's true. And then, as I say, it took courage for you to do what you did, to quit the job, that would never have been in my mind. Of course, I got married right away, and that was it. So that was what people did at that time. Right. And to be able to make your own choices at the age that you're at, and you were younger when you did that, is remarkable. And just gratifying. I can't say it better than that. It's gratifying because it gives people hope, and that's why I want people that are listening to this to play this podcast for their friends, mm-hmm. to recommend it to other people to listen to, If you want to give a review, you can go to iTunes. But I think more importantly than a review is to listen to what Jordan Gross is talking about today. Go to his website on getting-comfy.com. Sign up for his daily guide to happiness on his getting-comfy.com. You get a 5-day comfy morning routine. Listen to the many ways he uses the words comfy, C-O-M-F-Y, and see how it works for you. Buy his book in whatever format is in. And one last question, Jordan, is what has been a lesson that has stuck with you?
Ooh. What has been a lesson that has stuck with me?
Or advice that you've received?
Yeah, definitely. So, Joanne, I'll tell you something, a little secret of mine. So I have 3 handwritten pieces of paper on a hiding spot in my room on the wall. And one says, add value to others without expecting anything in return. We talked about that. The other one says, if people are questioning your sanity, then you're onto something. So we also talked about that, and the fact that deviating from the norm is so important to me. But then the last one is, if it isn't tough, it isn't worth it. So what I try to do is push myself to undergo experiences that get me a little bit uncomfy, that are very difficult, because I know that those are the ones that in the past have allowed me to prosper the most, and in the future are going to allow me to continue to be successful. So that's what I would say.
There we go, people. If it isn't tough, it isn't worth it. And, it's not going to be tough all the time, but once you're starting, as you're at the beginning of your life and you want to make changes in your life, you might come across some brick walls that you can't climb over, but you have to knock down. I also want to suggest that people go to my website at askjoannevictoria.com and download a free copy of the True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life, because that's what I help people do, is to transform their lives. I want to thank Jordan Gross for being here today. It's been enlightening, encouraging, and I've had fun with him, learning different things, but also seeing how everybody fits in together into this big puzzle called life. Uh-huh. And any last words, Jordan Gross?
You know what, Joanne? This was absolutely wonderful for me too. I think you're awesome, and I can't wait for your listeners to continue on with the journey that you're on, and hopefully listen to me a little bit along the way. So thank you so much. And I look forward to being in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks, listeners. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on her podcast page. And get a free copy of her book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.